Ashton Jeanty. He is at the forefront of my hottest 2025 NFL draft take, which is if Jeanty gets selected inside the top 10 of the draft later this month, I think he has a real chance to get that general manager fired when it's all said and done. Now, I've shared this opinion on a few other social media apps, and there's been a lot of pushback from Jeanty fans and also people who are big fans of running backs in general. I want to start off by saying this has nothing to do with Jeanty as a player. He had one of the best college seasons we've ever seen for a running back this past year for Boise State. He put up 2,600 yards and had 29 rushing touchdowns and was actually close to breaking Barry Sanders' all-time rushing yards in a season record. And it's clear if you've ever watched Jeanty play football, he's a really good and polished player. He's got fantastic contact balance. He has some physicality in his game. He's going to run through arm tackles and even truck defenders. I wouldn't say he has home run hitting speed, but he has fairly good speed as well to break away and also have some longer runs. We didn't see him utilized as a pass catcher a ton this past year, but as a sophomore for Boise State, he did have 43 catches for 569 yards. I think it's fair to assume he can be an asset in that part of an offense as well. So just in a vacuum, I think Jeanty is one of the better prospects to come out of the running back position in recent memory, but that also doesn't mean there are some questions about how well he will translate to the NFL. And that's kind of where this take I have stems from. Jeanty played all 3 years of his collegiate career in the Mountain West, and although he did have an occasional game like this past year, he played Oregon, he played Penn State, most of the competition, most of his highlights, and most of his statistics come against playing not great competition in schools. So that is something to take into consideration when you see a lot of people say, man, Jeanty put up all these great numbers, he's a generational player. I personally think like what he did against Nevada and Fresno State and Hawaii really doesn't matter a ton in terms of him just translating to being an NFL player. So my first point is I don't want to diminish what he did and the numbers he put up because they are historic. But if you are thinking about taking a running back inside the top 10, I would feel a lot better as a general manager that he did do it at the highest level at a really good school and consistently did it against some of the other top teams in the nation. If you look back in recent memory to running backs that got picked really high, we can go back to 2015. We have Todd Gurley, who was selected 10th overall. He played at Georgia in the SEC. We have Ezekiel Elliott in 2016, drafted number 4 overall. He was in the Big Ten at Ohio State. In 2017, Leonard Fournette, another SEC running back. Another one in the 2017 draft, Christian McCaffrey out of Stanford, Pac-12. Saquon Barkley of Penn State, he also played in the Big Ten. And then even the most recently drafted running back inside the top 10 in Bijan Robinson. In a smaller sense, he did play in the Big 12, but again, one of the Power 5 conferences. So we saw all of those running backs against the top competition week in and week out, and they also had really good numbers and a lot of really nice highlights. So what Jeanty was able to do in the Mountain West was fantastic, but I also think we need to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. And I definitely think that is something that NFL teams are taking into consideration if they are interested in drafting him. And the only other real criticism you can say about Jeanty is his size. He's definitely on the smaller end for running backs. He measured in just under 5'8.5" and 211 pounds. And instantly, I know a lot of people are going to go in my comments and say, Barry Sanders, he was around that size. One, Barry Sanders is a huge outlier, maybe the best running back ever, who's also a lot more fluid and elusive than Jeanty. There were just completely different styles of running backs. And around the average height for running backs in today's NFL is like just under 6 feet tall, around like that 5'10", 5'11" range. So Jeanty is undoubtedly an undersized player for his position. And when you combine that with the level of competition he was playing up against in the Mountain West, I do think that makes his projection at the NFL level a lot harder and more complex than what a lot of people are making it. But despite those two criticisms, I still do think Jeanty is one of the better running back prospects to come out in recent memory. I would be shocked if he was just a bust and not a good player whatsoever. I think he has a very well-rounded skill set, and I will be rooting for his success wherever he goes because superstar running backs are just super entertaining to watch. But that is how I view Jeanty as a prospect, and a couple of the criticisms that I have, along with some other people that do push back on some of his hype. But that isn't even the main reason why I think he could get a general manager fired. It all has to do with positional value and taking running backs so early in the NFL draft. We have seen 6 running backs get drafted inside the top 10 in the last 10 years, and I think it's fair to say really only one of those worked out for an extended period of time for the team that drafted them. I mentioned a few of them. Todd Gurley had a couple really good years on the Rams before his knees gave out, and he really didn't last up until until his late 20s even. The Rams even ended up cutting him with a couple years remaining on his long-term contract, and they had to take on a lot of dead money. I think the most successful one came in 2016 with Ezekiel Elliott and the Dallas Cowboys. He had a couple of really great seasons, also showed some longevity kind of deep into his 20s. Leonard Fournette for the Jags never really amounted to anything. I think that was a huge whiff. Christian McCaffrey had a couple of really productive seasons on the Panthers, but routinely dealt with injuries and was really most impactful on his second team, the 49ers. And Saquon, people are going to argue, but for the Giants, I don't really think it worked out for them. He had a couple of really electrifying seasons, but dealt with a ton of injuries, never really maximized him being a top 3 pick in the draft. I mean, you're telling me if the Giants didn't draft somebody like Denzel Ward or Roquan Smith or Minka Fitzpatrick, Vita Vea, that wouldn't have been a better selection for them in terms of value at pick number 2. And then a couple of years ago, the most recent one we had was Bijan Robinson for the Atlanta Falcons. I think Bijan has been a really good player. He's one of the best running backs in the league. But again, for the Falcons, what has he really done for them? They would have been much better off taking Jalen Carter, who the Eagles got with the very next pick, who is now one of the most disruptive defensive linemen in the entire NFL. I know there were some off-the-field concerns with him. Maybe the Falcons didn't feel comfortable doing that. But the point is, dating back 10 years now, taking a running back so early and passing on some other more valuable positions really hasn't worked out for any single one of these teams. And so when I look at the 2025 NFL draft, this is also a very loaded running back class. I mean, this goes like 7, 8, 9 deep of players that you can really see being impact starters in the NFL. I think Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina could end up being the best running back from this draft. He almost reminds me of like a mini Marshawn Lynch. He's 6 foot tall, 221 pounds, and ran a 4.46 at the NFL Combine. So he is the prototypical size. He might be faster than Jeanty, who elected to not run the 40-yard dash. And Hampton is probably going to be drafted in the later first round. You got a couple of Ohio State Buckeyes with Travion Henderson and Quinshad Judkins. Henderson might be the most elusive and fastest running back in this draft, and also the best pass protector. He's the guy that's probably going to be going in day 2, and his teammate Quinshad Judkins is a really fascinating player as well. Kind of a similar build of Hampton. He's over 6 feet tall, 221 pounds, and he ran a 4.48 40-yard dash, so another really physical specimen. You've got Caleb Johnson from Iowa, maybe the biggest running back in this draft, over 6'1", and had a crazy good season for the Hawkeyes last season. And then you get into the range of guys that could be drafted on day 3 but still be really good players. Cam Skadaboo out of Arizona State, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, Devin Neal of Kansas. I mean, this draft has so many starting caliber running backs that you can get in day 2 and day 3. And personally, if I was building a team, that is just a way better way to construct my roster than taking Jeanty inside the top 10 or maybe even the top 5. I really don't think it's set in stone that Jeanty emerges as the best running back when it's all said and done from this draft class. And if that happens and John Spytek, the new GM of the Raiders, or the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles, the 2 most rumored teams to take Jeanty, actually do select him, I think there could be a lot of questions asked about that pick and maybe even cost them their job when it's all said and done. I think the earliest I would begin to look at Jeanty would be the Dallas Cowboys with the 12th overall pick. They have a huge need at the running back position, really just offensive weapons. And we know Jerry Jones, he loves to go after the very hyped up and polarizing player. And Jeanty fits that mold and could have a really big immediate impact on the Cowboys. I think another really realistic scenario is a team like around the 20s, maybe trading up into the draft if Jeanty does slip outside of the top 10. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Chargers, all those teams could be in the market to draft a running back fairly high. But that is my take on Ashton Jeanty and taking a running back so early in the draft. I think especially this year, it's a unique circumstance just because of how deep this class is. But I want to know what you think about Ashton Jeanty, and what do you think about my stance on positional value and not taking him super early in the draft? Do you agree, or do you think I'm crazy and the Raiders or the Bears should definitely take Jeanty at the end of this month? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.